In the world of Formula 1, fueled by huge sums of money, there are countless teams that have withdrawn due to financial difficulties. But did you know that there was a team in the past that was kicked out of Formula 1 for its own problematic behaviors? This time, I will introduce the history and exploits of the Andrea Moda team that was once a regular troublemaker and was expelled from Formula 1. In this channel, we will talk a lot about Formula 1's history, so please subscribe for future updates. In the late 80s and early 90s, Formula 1 created many back markers. For example, Coloni, who originally powerfully competed in Italy's Formula 3, had entered F1 in 1987. At the end of 1989, Japan's Subaru acquired half of the team's stock and joined the race as the Subaru Coloni team in 1990. Subaru, along with Motori Moderni, developed their Boxer engine, but it came to naught, and Subaru withdrew in the middle of the season. The team switched engines to Cosworths and continued racing. However, in 1991, their vehicle turned out worse than the F3000. It never passed the pre-qualify, and the team was on the verge of withdrawal as well. After the 1991 season, there was someone who considered buying out Coloni to enter Formula 1. He was an Italian businessman, Andrea Sassetti. Sassetti's father, Silvano Sassetti, owned an Italian shoe brand company, and Andrea himself, like his father, founded a fashion brand called Andrea Moda in Italy, focusing mainly on shoes. When he first contemplated participating in Formula 1, Sassetti heard that Coloni, a team from his home country of Italy, was suffering financial difficulties. He decided to try buying it out. Acquiring Coloni, Sassetti renamed the team Andrea Moda after his own brand and entered Formula 1 in 1992. Andrea Moda retained many staff from Coloni, but some were transferred in from Sassetti's shoe company. It was said that some of his shoe business employees turned to race mechanics. Also, the factory and all other facilities were taken over from Coloni, while a new car could not be ready in time. They recycled Coloni's previous model C4, but used a Judd V10 engine and called it C4B. They decided to use C4B until the new vehicle was completed. The appointed drivers were Alex Caffi, who had a lot of F1 experience in a small team, and Enrico Bertaggia, who made spot entries in F1 with Coloni in 1989 and ran in Japan's F3000 until 1991. Finally, Andrea Moda was ready to join in F1 in the 1992 season, but troubles appeared from the opening round. The team was denied entry to the opening, the South African Grand Prix, for failing to pay FISA the $100,000 security deposit levied on new entrants. Sassetti claimed that the team had taken over from Coloni and was not a new entry, but this excuse was not accepted, and the team was forced to withdraw from the Grand Prix. In addition, as Andrea Moda was judged as a new entry team, it became clear that the regulation states, "It is necessary to participate in the race with an in-house built chassis." Meanwhile, BMW, which was planning to enter F1 at the time, asked the race constructor Simtek to design the car. Andrea reused these blueprints himself. The original car S921 was introduced from the second round. However, although the team traveled to the second round, Mexico, their entry was suddenly cancelled during the race week. Sassetti explained he could not bring all the necessary equipment to the circuit, but the actual cause was that the new S921 was not ready for entry due to a production delay. Drivers Caffi and Bertaggia also criticized the team for this situation. They requested Sassetti be more dedicated to creating an environment where the drivers could concentrate on the races. Sassetti would not tolerate criticism of himself or the team. He fired the two drivers at once. These two drivers ended up leaving the team without running one single race. Instead, from the next round, the team hired Roberto Moreno, who drove for Benetton in the previous year, and a rookie, Perry McCarthy. In the third round, the Brazilian Grand Prix, it took too much time to issue McCarthy's super license, and only Moreno could join the race. At least they could finally participate though. But the reality of their circumstances was harsh. Moreno's time was 16 seconds behind Bertrand Gachot, who recorded the top time in the pre-qualify. Of course, he failed out. Although his drive ranked unsatisfactorily with their troubles, he was 23 seconds later than Nigel Mansell, who took pole position in the subsequent qualifying. In addition, a drama played out within the team over selecting drivers. Bertaggia, who was once fired, pressed Sassetti to reappoint him as a race driver again with his new sponsor. Sassetti, who was struggling with cash flow, immediately accepted Bertaggia's proposal and applied to F1 for using Bertaggia again instead of McCarthy. Sassetti had high hopes for this offer, which would bring a large amount of money to the team to improve their sluggish situation. However, FISA expressed concern about Andrea Moda, who had been frequently changing drivers. FISA decided to decline the request. FISA asked Andrea to allow McCarthy to continue. Sassetti lost his chance at a large amount of sponsor money, began to resent McCarthy, and then began to openly harass him. Sassetti threw more team resources on Moreno's side, giving McCarthy little chance to run in the pre-qualify. In the British Grand Prix as the 9th round, they made McCarthy run with used wet tires despite the dry conditions. And in the 12th round, the Belgian Grand Prix, they sent him out to the qualifying session with a broken steering wheel. It was like running McCarthy just to fulfill the team's regulatory obligations. In such poor team conditions, in the Monaco Grand Prix as the 6th round, Moreno recorded a fine time in the pre-qualify and advanced to the qualifying session on Saturday. Moreno, who entered the qualifying for the first time, recorded a good time again and marked the 26th place of 30. After miraculously passing the qualifying session, the team aimed for their first ever Sunday's race. In the race, the team had to drop out of the race due to a technical problem, but the team felt a sense of accomplishment. However, lack of funds continued to plague them, and the team's unstable management situation did not improve. In the 7th round, the Canadian Grand Prix, the Judd engine was not provided due to the delayed payment of the engine usage fee, and the same type engine had to be borrowed from Brabham. Because they could borrow only one engine at the time, McCarthy could not run. And in the French Grand Prix as the 8th round, again, equipment did not arrive at the circuit, so the team could not help but step back from the race. Around the time, many staff and sponsors started to leave the team due to the team's poor management. In the 9th round, the British Grand Prix, most of the sponsors left and the car became a solitary jet black. Around this time, they were unable to prepare parts for 2 cars, so after Moreno set a time, they moved the parts to McCarthy's car before the race. Due to this unstable operation, the team received repeated warnings. Unfortunately, the situation got even worse from there. During the race week of the Belgian Grand Prix as the 12th round, Sassetti was arrested by local police authorities for falsifying customs documents. FISA, who could no longer ignore the situation, announced that Andrea Moda and Sassetti had lost all credibility in Formula 1, and they earned an unprecedented expulsion from the championship. Andrea Moda was refused any future entries. Sassetti was released on parole after the Belgian Grand Prix, but the team had to withdraw. Andrea Moda's corruption caused a stir in the Formula 1 world with only 9 races and came to the end there. So what do you think? This time I introduced the history of Andrea Moda's challenge in Formula 1. This channel will introduce more and more Formula 1 history, so please subscribe to us and it will drive us forward. We'll see you in the next video.